1956 began to show the first major cracks in communist control of Eastern Europe. However, the Soviets' response showed that they were not prepared to give up control just yet. There were actually two major events that year, the first one being overshadowed by the second, but they are closely related. In June 1956, discontent had been growing in Poland, where the command economy dictated how much the factories needed to produce. Even local managers had no control over how this was supposed to be achieved, and everything was dictated by distant bureaucrats. Now all this came to a head when workers thought that they'd produced enough to get a bonus, but the target for production had been changed at the last moment. Now when a delegation of workers was sent to the capital and resulted in more broken promises by the government, a group of workers from the factory in Poznan went out on strike. These were soon joined by other workers and students, all with similar complaints against the government. Very quickly, a group probably numbering around about 100,000 people, mainly unarmed, gathered in the central square. At this stage, the government decided to send in the security police, backed up by the army. When several hundred arrests had been made, the crowd reacted, and the government sent in about 10,000 troops, backed up by several hundred armoured vehicles. The army was actually made up from troops drawn from outside of the local area. We're told that German agitators were attempting to ruin Poland's international reputation. It's difficult to know how many people died or were injured in the crackdown. However, the end result was never in doubt. In an attempt to prevent a reoccurrence, the government paid the missing bonus and attempted to reform the command economy, and also replace the head of the Polish government. However, another 25 years before Polish workers again attempted to challenge the government's right to rule. And just like Poland, the workers in Hungary were also discontent with Soviet control, except that the economy was in a far worse state than in Poland. In addition, Hungary was expected to make substantial contributions to other states in the East as part of war reparations. Events in Hungary, however, were sparked by the shooting of a single student in a protest march in October 1956. This sparked more protests, which quickly became a revolution. The whole speed of this change actually caught the Hungarian government completely unprepared, and the government collapsed. The people then organised local workers' councils and a militia. They attempted to round up the Hungarian secret police and also the Russian troops who were stationed on Hungarian soil at the time, and also then release the thousands of political prisoners that had been currently being held. However, conflict broke out, mainly between the heavily armed Russian troops and the relatively lightly armed militia, who made really useful use of the narrow city streets and Molotov cocktails. Level of fighting, however, eventually reduced, and the new provisional government announced it wanted to become politically neutral and also withdraw from the Warsaw Pact. Now, under the terms of which other members were not supposed to actually interfere with the internal government of member states. For the next 2 weeks, however, the Russians moved up substantial armed forces to the border with Hungary, and despite assurances to the contrary, over 100,000 Russian troops and over 6,000 armoured vehicles crossed into Hungary and crushed the revolution, resulting in many tens of thousands of civilians fleeing to other nearby countries and the fall of the government. During the revolution, the West had considered using its armed forces to help defend Hungary, but it was feared that any direct clash with Soviet forces in Europe could possibly result in an all-out nuclear war, and this was to be avoided at all costs. This meant that future Russian action in areas that it controlled in Eastern Europe would not be directly opposed, and the Iron Curtain, as it had been called by Churchill, had fallen firmly in place across Europe.